your stomach?
Probably.
Or is that my stomach?
Eating that meat, son.
The what?
I said eating that meat.
All right. 3, 2.
Welcome to Nightmare 365.
This is the center of weirdness for the entire planet.
There's tons of unsolved mysteries out there.
Witches still exist.
What about monsters?
Do you believe in ghosts?
Bigfoot is not out there.
Bigfoot is definitely out there. UFOs are real.
UFOs might be real.
Do you believe in conspiracies?
I consider myself a conspiracy theorist.
I want to believe in all these case files.
Trust no one. The government lies to you.
We're just two brothers exploring the unexplained, mysterious, and spookiness that lives among us. What's going on, all you mystery seekers? Welcome back to another podcast episode. Of
Live edition.
This is live on YouTube right now. And we have a guest with us from Squatch Me Now. But before we get into that and we introduce Trey, I just want to say thank you to our Patreons and, as Greg calls them, the super fans.
Super fans.
Yeah, thanks for Patreons. And we're going to be doing a little bonus Patreon-only episode after this with Trey. He'll be joining us on the line as well, too. So we just want to say thank you again to all the people that really do support us, like Emily, Helen, Steven, Floor, all them. We just really do appreciate, your support on there. It does help us out. And follow along. As everybody knows, if you're listening to this show, nightmare365.com, all of our information. And if you do have stories for us, you want to share Bigfoot stories, UFO sightings, anything like that, our phone number's on there, which is 732-660-8893. You can find that. This is the center of weirdness for the entire planet. So today, our guest is Trey Howell from Squatch Me Now. You can find his website at squatchmenow.net. And it's pretty cool. It's a blog that dives into Bigfoot, kind of the unexplained stories that are floating around there. And I would say it's more of a site that he posts of other people's videos and things like that. He discusses it. He goes into detail, on different cases, whether he believes it or not, depending on what the evidence presents it. And that's what I really like about his website and information, because it has all that stuff out there. And we could talk more about with him and, get his opinion if that's correct or not. But definitely check it out. And I would recommend following his Instagram page as well.
Yeah, it has everything up there.
Yeah, it just has tons of stuff, like the different
I'm just here
sightings.
for the comments.
You're here for the comments?
That's it.
All right, well, let's open up this eerie vault and say, instead of do run, we're going to actually do... Oh, one thing before we start the show, I do want to mention the music that you're going to hear at the end of the program is by our good friend Mike Picarella from Jack-O-Lantern Press. Those guys do some great work.
Becky Picks.
The what?
Mike Becky Picks.
Yeah, so check out the new, I guess you would, I think we should use it for our exit. Maybe we'll start using it for, our intro, but I think it's pretty cool because it is almost like 2 minutes long. This one, our intro is about like 45, but this one's cool because it feels like a mix between like Tales from the Crypt opening and like Erie, Indiana, and it has like all the stuff in there, like government helicopters, Bigfoot, things like that. But yeah, I just thought it was really, really cool. So we're gonna open up the Erie Vault today, and we're gonna talk to Trey. Trey is on the line. What is going on, Trey?
How's it going, fellas?
Oh, it's going. We're excited to talk about Bigfoot. This is Greg's favorite topic.
Yeah, no, this is your favorite topic.
I do love Bigfoot, man. I even have my Bigfoot lunchbox right behind us.
He does.
So, did we get it right as far as like squatchmenow.net? I would say you're more like an aggregator of stories, information on sightings of supposedly of Bigfoot. Would you say that's?
Okay, can you give it to me?
Oh, did we break up a little bit?
Like, are you you're basically like an aggregate for like everyone's videos, and you break it down and you give your opinion on everyone else's videos. Would you say that's like correct?
Shit, did we lose him? We lost him already?
Oh boy.
Hold on.
we lost them.
Yeah, the call failed. So hold on, we're gonna call him back. Hopefully, we can get him on the line, and we'll see.
But yeah, if you go to his Instagram page,
Yeah.
for everyone like that's listening and everything like that, you could see like he has so many like videos and followers.
Let me see if it's on. Trey, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, I don't know what happened. Maybe the aliens got to us or
Oh my
something.
God.
This is what happens when you try to do
Probably.
like a live show. So
It's the government trying to stop us, man.
There you go.
I think it is, and like Greg does say it all the time.
The government lies to you.
All
but
right,
yeah,
I'm here. Can you hear me?
yeah, we got you. We were saying
Awesome.
that Squatch Me Now and like your Instagram page and your website, you basically put out people's videos and break them down and give like your opinion and I guess like the breakdown so everyone else could see and make their own opinions and views on them.
Absolutely. I mean, the main goal here is just to take a look at the purported evidence. In my bio it says there's a question mark besides evidence for relic hominids. So it's this is what's purported evidence, whether it's a track, a news story, a photo, a video, whatever the case may be. It's all purported. I'm not claiming that any of it's real, but the goal here is to talk about the subject more and talk about it in broader terms and to sort of have a less narrow mindset about what the evidence is showing us. In a lot of cases, I have people that want to talk, tell me that's not what Bigfoot looks like. It's too small. The track's not right. The color's not right. The arms aren't the right length, whatever the case may be. And I think that the reality of this larger phenomenon is that we're dealing with a lot of different creatures, if that's what you want to call them, with a lot of genetic diversity. They're living at different stages of their lives. So just saying that based on this or that, it's fake or it's real, either way is short-sighted. We need to look at this from a much broader perspective.
So
we're looking at somewhere between 10 and 20 hominids that we have fossil evidence of, and the fossil record is extremely limited, that may represent relic populations today that once again have created regional adaptations, hybridized with other humans as well as other hominids. And so what exists today, what we're seeing in this phenomenon is probably pretty diverse. So just immediately debunking subjectively based on your thoughts of what these things should look like is really short-sighted, and I think at the end of the day, it's hurting the Bigfoot community because we just end up infighting over these small details when we're really dealing with a much larger idea that we need to be looking at.
yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, people have their beliefs already. And no matter how much information you give them, seeing is believing. And I think we always say this on our show, is because when seeing is believing and you have information that whatever preconceived notions you have going into it, like, all right, Bigfoot's bullshit, like, and whatever mainstream media puts out there, like we talked about, we did a Patreon only episode of Expedition Bigfoot, which I think we wanted to release, just talking about that show. I don't know if you're into those types of shows, but when they kind of overproduce it, and then people have the mindset like, all right, it's all bullshit. They didn't find anything. The stuff that they do find is very trivial.
I don't know. They kind of found like two big pieces of evidence though.
I mean, they did, but
like a thermal imaging camera, like image, and then like the image at the end.
But I'm saying like it's overproduced in certain ways, and for some people that actually go out there and do their own research, or like you mentioned off the air, Jeff Meldrum, where people really do hardcore research and they don't get enough play. It kind of saturates it. It saturates it to the point where people already don't believe going into it, no matter how much evidence you give. And like, there's a lot of compelling videos that you share on your Instagram page, which I think is really cool. And I would definitely love to touch on a couple. And I know we had a couple in the past that we did for Weekday Weirds, where we definitely want to talk about, like the one that was the Bigfoot running across the road in Russia from years ago. We have that one saved. And then also one of the big videos that you had on Squatch Me Now was from, I mean, I know the Beacon Bigfoot Part 1 and 2 got a lot of play, but then also the Salt Fork, Ohio Grassman Bigfoot Sasquatch.
Sure.
I would
Yeah,
love to talk about
the
that
new one.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, just get your thoughts on those and like what because I think you dive into this a lot more than we do because you just focus on Bigfoot. And I don't
Right.
know if there's certain cases that stand out to you more than others.
Yeah, like what would you say like your top, I guess, 3 like most compelling evidence cases or pieces of evidence that you've seen to prove like Bigfoot's real?
Or not real.
Well,
Yeah.
you're right. Yeah. Well, for the pro, I really like the Independence Day footage. I don't think you can. A lot of people want to say that that's a man. That one gets a lot of controversy. If you know what I'm talking about, the one where the supposedly mother Bigfoot is carrying a baby and walking behind these large boulders.
Mm-hmm.
And the source is unknown, so that's difficult. But people want to say that that's hoax, and I think that if you really look into, I have a film and video production background, and I've worked at I've done some work with friends at the Tom Savini School in Pennsylvania, which is a special effects school, and worked in special effects here and there. And I can tell you these suits and puppetry and all this other stuff, if it is being hoaxed in that way, you're talking about a major investment for something that you're getting no credit for. So when I look at the Independence Day footage with the baby clinging to the mother and how smoothly she's walking through a boulder field downhill in a suit, that's difficult. That's not something that anyone's just going to be able to easily do. That would take quite a bit of rehearsal, if you will. And even with that, anytime you're doing any sort of production, Murphy's Law is in full effect. So, I mean, that's a lot of the Independence Day is one of my favorites. I think it's a really good piece of evidence. I just wish we had more background on who
shot
filmed
it. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly the Calgary Bigfoot. I think on my page, I called it like the Calgary Timber Giant or something like that. But it's the one where the father and children are sort of walking through the snow, and they see in the distance this huge, hairy, reddish-colored creature stand up where it looked like it had been sitting on a large fallen tree and just walk away into the forest. I mean, these are the kind of things where when I'm thinking about this from a production perspective, where if I was going to try to recreate this video, what it would take, man, you're talking about a lot of money. You're talking about finding a huge dude and then putting him into even more suit. I mean, just trying to make someone look that wide is extremely difficult. You're talking about trying to make someone look like 5 feet wide.
Yeah.
And then they got to walk in it. Then they have to be mobile. I mean, photos, that's why I try to post as many videos as possible, because videos are a lot harder to hoax than a photo. Photo, it's open to all types of, in some cases, Photoshop, suits, that kind of thing, where you're not actually seeing the mobility of the creature. But probably my next favorite on that note is the Russian Leaping Almasty or Yeti video, where this creature is in the background, pretty far back there, but you just see it leaping huge gaps of space through this forest. So you see these rippling muscles across the back. Once again, extremely difficult to hoax. Everybody wants to say everything that comes out of Russia is fake just because it comes out of Russia. I think that's wrong on a lot of levels, but that video is incredibly compelling just based on the physicality of that creature. And that's certainly one that's gotten a lot of hits on our Instagram page. So
now I got a question for you about like the original, I guess like the original Bigfoot.
Patty.
The Patterson, yeah.
Gimlin film.
What do you think about that one?
Well, I think before we started, I was talking about focal lengths on cameras, and I think the thought was that was shot I want to say somewhere between 15 and 20 something millimeter lens, and once again, the human eye is comparable to a 50 millimeter lens. So what we're seeing through that camera is a lot less, a lot further away than what Bob Gimlin was seeing and Roger Patterson. Is it real? I mean, who's gonna? Who am I to say? None of us are experts on this subject, and I would say that even if they had shot that creature and had a body or captured it, and we had a live specimen for the last 50 some odd years, then even the people studying that would not be experts on this broader phenomenon, because there are different types all over the world. But for that particular video, I mean, I think it's pretty compelling. I think if you look, there's recently a documentary released about the makeup effects behind Planet of the Apes, which is in a similar time frame. And creating something like that is not as easy in 1967 as it would be today. And so for some country boys from, the West Coast to just throw that together with rippling muscles and all this and that, really hard. I mean, today we have to use muscle suits, and I still don't think, underneath the basic costume, underneath the fur, and even with that, I don't think you get that same quality of look. So I think it's fairly convincing. It's obviously a lot of people talk about the fact that it had breasts is not something that you would typically think that, especially back then, some guys would add to a suit. And in my opinion, the fact that it's a female and the fact that it showed itself, in my opinion, when we see these things, most of the time, there's a lot of other ones around. And that one that we're seeing is more of a decoy. I think that's a strategy that they're employing. I mean, people say, why don't they just walk out? Well, I think that's what they're doing. I think they're actually drawing our attention. And the same way, almost in some cases, the coyotes and wolves will do that. They'll send out a decoy to draw people in or to draw them away, one or the other. And I think that might be what we're seeing here. Maybe she had, there's a lot of videos I've watched where they're going and seemingly picking up a child. Maybe she was distracting them while she went to go get her babies, or another one went to get the babies, or there were other ones moving through that area. So it's convincing, in my opinion, for a lot of reasons. One, just the date it was shot, the size that it had to have been, based on how far away it was. I think it had to be a lot larger than some of these hoaxers have claimed, and it was moving pretty smoothly through that creek bed, which, any of us that go out in the field and try to do this stuff would probably stumped our foot or tripped on something when we're, if you're trying to walk through any sort of rough terrain, especially with flowing water and lots of creek stones and rocks. So, she looked like she was pretty comfortable in that environment and moving through that area. So, and once again, you add the difficulty component of wearing a suit, especially back then, once again. And a lot of people say, oh, that head was just one big headpiece that they put over it. So then you're like basically completely blinded. And trying to be that physical. I think it's a lot harder than people think, and a lot of people just want to yell hoax, but they don't look deeper into what it would take to hoax.
Well, yeah, that's coming back to, again, where they already have preconceived notions on whatever they believe or don't believe. Same thing with aliens. And I mean, I'm guilty of that too. There's a lot of stuff where I see and I'm like, all right, it doesn't fit my notion of what a Bigfoot looks like, or, what I think. Like, and you talk about, which I think is a great point,
Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah, like that. That's what I grew up on.
Yeah.
So you think of Bigfoot is, and you always hear about, all right, 7 to 10 feet tall, and people could always identify how big it is, how much it weighs. But I guarantee, like, me and my brother just walked out and they're like, all right, give us an approximate height and weight on us. Most people couldn't get that correct. So I think there is a lot of biases. I think there's a lot of misconceptions on it. And actually, this is a good video too. And just on our YouTube channel, John actually said the video, and I do remember seeing this a little bit ago. I don't know if you posted this, Trey, but the possible Sasquatch sighting outside of Squamish, British Columbia in 2014. Do you know that one off the top of your head?
Yeah.
And that one's pretty compelling. I'll pull that up on our screen. so Greg could see it too. But this one, I was like, all right, this is kind of crazy. It's two gentlemen like hiking up, and then they see like this big Sasquatch, Bigfoot, another human, and I mean they're pretty far up wherever the heck they are. So if they're like hiking that far up just to hoax it, that's pretty amazing. I don't know if you know too much about this video. Besides me just seeing this, that's all I know. But that's what John shared with us on our YouTube channel.
Right, you're talking about the one where it's basically walking on a ridge line and it's just kind of like stomping around.
No, it's like in a valley, like in a snow.
Yeah, it's the Snow Mountains.
Oh,
I could
Snow
definitely see.
Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that one with British Columbia. There's two hikers at the top of this like whatever peak, and down in like the valley of this mountain, it's all snow, and then you just
Oh yeah. I know which one you're talking about.
yeah, and then
Yeah,
I mean they zoom in pretty good. So for them to like, I mean that's going like you talk about doing what people like spending a lot of time and preparation to hoax something like this.
I mean, it could just be
Oh,
somebody
yeah.
walking. You don't know just because it's so far away.
No, it's true, but
But-
I
Right,
mean
yeah.
But
the
you never know.
the object is big, whatever it is, even if it is just a big dude.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah, but I mean, so that dude basically either these guys are in on it and they just waited there for this guy to get all the way down there and all the way back,
right.
or there's just some random dude walking through that valley in the snow just to hoax other people. Now, I guess he could be just some guy but he wouldn't be wearing a ghillie suit or anything. There's
No, yeah.
reason.
No,
Just be wearing a dark colored ghillie suit in the snow. So,
well, in the
yeah.
video too, that's what they say. They're like, all right, we don't see any. I mean, they're far away, so I don't know how they're seeing it unless they're looking through binoculars or something. But they do say like there's no like hiking gear, anything like that. It's like pretty wild, and it seems like they're in the middle of nowhere. I'll definitely link this one up in the show notes. It already had like almost close to 3 million views, so it's definitely
Oh, yeah.
something that's interesting.
Now,
Nonetheless,
How did you like get into this? Like, how did you
How to
become
get
like
into it.
like obsessed with like Bigfoot?
Well, I can say that from basically the time I was able to read, I was, begging parents to take me to the library, and I didn't want to go to the kids section. I wanted to go to the real stuff. I wanted to get into the real paleontology books and anthropology books. I was on some kid show when I was like 5 years old, and they're going through and asking all the kids what they want to be when they grow up. It's fireman, policeman, teacher, whatever, doctor, good things. But they get to me and I'm like paleontologist, and all the kids look at me like I'm an idiot. But what the heck is that? So I've been interested into the science of evolution and that kind of thing for a long time, dinosaurs and all of this. But as a kid and even a little bit older, I've had some interesting paranormal experiences outside of the world of Bigfoot, which certainly opened my eyes. I already had this strong interest in science. Opened my eyes to like possibility of things that we don't know about. And so for about 20 years, I've been studying all of these sort of paranormal subjects pretty heavily. I like Bigfoot maybe the most, even though I haven't had actually a Bigfoot experience myself, simply because, for lack of a better phrase, it's probably the most down to earth or grounded subject. There's
Sure.
a lot of fossil evidence of similar creatures. There's certainly, I think, the highest possibility of proving something like this. So the existence, I mean, there's just so much evidence already
My biggest question is like, where do they live?
going to be created, but we already have fossil evidence for 20 some odd species that could be something close to this. So I think Bigfoot's a very interesting subject because it's got a lot of historical basis just in the fossil record, and then the oral traditions of the indigenous people all over the world, not just Native Americans, but even in ancient Europe. You've got medieval art.
well, that was one of the
yeah,
things I want to touch on. Just for the simple
Yeah, go
fact,
ahead.
like Greg brought up the point, like, one of his biggest questions was where do they live?
Mhm.
And, I always posed this theory and I always joked around with them. But then, like, I remember when he made me watch Expedition Bigfoot and they did the same thing at the end of their series. And I said, like, they live in caves, man. There's probably underground caves that we don't know about. and they're just like crisscrossing all over each other. But like you brought up a good point. There's a lot of, historical evidence, with Bigfoot, like Native Americans, yes, like the ancients and all different cultures from around the world before there was like mass communications to talk about like sightings. And one of my thing was, do you think that at one point, yes, like a Bigfoot as we know it did exist, but then like, there wasn't enough of them and they went extinct, and now there's just different types of, because you said there's like different species and all this other stuff, but do you think like maybe there was like some type of Bigfoot that we knew and it just went, it's gone, it's disappeared, and then now people just kind of pass these stories around, and then when they see something unknown, it's like a lot of misidentifications for it?
I don't think, I think that's, I've heard that's sort of genetic memory. I think is commonly what that's called.
Yeah.
I think there's too much evidence today still to completely
Discount it all.
debunk it as
Yeah.
just genetic memory or, a mass psychological contagion. I think these things are very smart. I think, when you say Bigfoot, I was reading an article, a lady was talking, I'm researching the Cherokee legends about this right now, and a woman online was writing about it, and she said, unfortunately, there are a lot of people connecting Sulkalu, which was an ancient giant that the Cherokees talk about, both as an individual and a population that existed. Unfortunately, people are connecting this with Bigfoot. Well, what is Bigfoot? I think that's really my biggest point here with everything I do is, what is Bigfoot? Is Bigfoot one thing? Is it one creature that looks this way and walks this way and does this behavior and this and that? No, I don't think it is. I think we're dealing with various types that we have a fossil record of that existed at one time in terms of early hominids, in terms of hairy, human-like creatures that humans lived with. And I think we have relic populations of those that still exist today. They have continued to interbreed with each other, and by each other, I mean other relic hominids as well as humans. We have evidence of that in oral tradition, both with the woodwolves of Europe, which would steal women, and the Seraphim Long story from the west coast of the United States, where this woman was taken and impregnated by a Bigfoot.
I do remember that.
So I think we're dealing with a lot of different creatures. Where you guys are in the Northeast, they're described a lot more often as Neanderthal looking. Whereas on the West Coast, it seems like you're probably dealing with something that might be a little more derivative of a Gigantopithecus. But whatever exists now is different than whatever existed way back then, even in the Middle Ages, or 1,000 years ago, or 10,000 years ago, or 100,000 years ago, or 3 million years ago, because just like us, they've continued to adapt
evolution,
and evolve and change. I mean, you can look at, up in the Northeast, you can go into some of these old colonial homes, and the doorways are really small, right? Why? Because humans were a lot smaller. So even if you have a Neanderthal that was similar to human size, that is still in a relic population that still survived, and even if they haven't interbred with anything else, it's likely they've continued to get larger, just like humans have. So, in the Northeast, people see a lot of 6 to 7 foot tall Neanderthal-looking creatures. That makes a lot of sense. When during the Ice Age, it was a lot easier to travel, not just across the Bering land bridge, but it was easier to travel just following the coastline. Humans did it all over the world. They followed the coastline, and so they could be coming from Europe, Northern Europe, Asia, and going right up across Greenland and all those areas into the Nova Scotia and then down the east coast of the United States. So I think, we have migration patterns, and I think the witness descriptions show these migration patterns of different types of early hominids that have moved into different areas of the world. And, and then when they get there, they continue to interbreed, continue to adapt and develop and change. Some are going to be bigger in northern areas where it's cold. That's a common thought in science, is that, colder, more northerly temperatures will create animals that grow larger. And, if you look at like orang pendek, which is most likely Homo florenzius or something like that, that we have fossil record of as early as 10,000 years ago. There's just typically described as smaller, but they're on a Southeast Asian island.
Mhm.
So that makes sense with that too. So I think, like I said, Bigfoot's bigger. Bigfoot's a much bigger idea, and the Bigfoot generic term is actually maybe hurts us a little bit because people are pigeonholing everything into this Bigfoot category, whereas I think there's a lot of different types, and I think they fit a lot of different descriptions and a lot of different, based on environmental adaptations, interbreeding, all these different things. So I think there's a lot of evidence. I'm not a believer. I don't even like, you used the term believer earlier. I don't like the idea of a believer. I call myself an inferrer. I think there's enough evidence today to make a logical inference that we're dealing with some sort of physical reality. And then there's the knowers. There's the people that have seen something, experienced something, and they know that it exists because it has to be that. Because they saw it with their own eyes, unless they're, having some sort of issue. But, people want to say, oh, they were drinking or they were smoking pot or whatever the case may be. None of that stuff, I don't care if you're doing acid, I don't care what you're doing, none of that's going to make you see a large, 8-foot hairy hominid running around in the woods. So, especially people that have like very specific descriptions. And, I think we have enough evidence right now that we have way more than would be necessary to prove it in court. There are people that go to jail for life or to get the death penalty on a lot less evidence in this country all the time.
So with that being, like, all that being said and everything like that, do you believe, like, because I guess like the main question everybody I think would have is like, all right, what is their food source? Where are they mainly living?
Mhm.
How come we haven't seen more of, like, do they bury their dead? Like, how come we haven't seen more, I guess, mainstream proof than kind of the stuff that, a lot of the evidence. And granted, like, again, I don't know. Like, all I'm basing it on is just a lot of different evidence and, like some of the remote stuff, even the one that we just saw in British Columbia, that like so remote.
Sure.
Not too many people are venturing out there. There's just two dudes out on the mountain that see this. So, there's a lot of stuff but then I come back to like, holy shit, what are they eating? Like, where are they going to get most of their nutrients if they're kind of like humanoid people?
Yeah, that, or like, how come we haven't really like captured one? Like, we can capture every other, I don't know. There hasn't been like a real science expedition to.
Well, I guess I equate
know.
that to, like, there's a lot of stuff in the water. Like, we just did, a bunch of different weekday weirds.
Yeah, we don't
different
know.
creatures
They're
that-
discovering new shit every day in the water.
Right. So,
Right. So I'll answer all those questions. One,
Yeah.
we have over 100 million acres of wilderness in the United States.
oh yeah,
And a lot of that is, human feet have never stepped on. So you've got that. Two, I think we're dealing with a creature that's basically a really genetically dense, and by just think about a chimp and how strong they are. Creature that's also extremely intelligent, and we may be dealing with something that's developed that's actually just as intelligent, if maybe not more intelligent than us, in a different way. Da Vinci talks about lots of different types of intelligence, and I think these guys have a lot of physical intelligence and possibly a lot of other types of intelligence that we don't have because we crutch on technology and have for at least 10,000 years. So where else are they living? If you look at a map of like a karst map, which is a map of caves in this country, you can see, and you touched on this a little bit before, you see a direct correlation. And this is one of the first posts I made on my Instagram. You can see a direct correlation between Bigfoot sightings and cave systems.
yeah. That was one of the biggest things I thought about too, because I
So,
actually have
and the
two
fact that they're
friends.
nocturnal, the fact that
Yeah, I have two friends that go caving all the time, and I always say, like, look out
Yeah.
for Bigfoot. If you see anything, please let me know.
Right.
But
Yeah,
I mean, I know I joked around about that a lot, even with Greg. But that was one of my things. Like, just it makes sense, even though it is like very comical to like the mainstream like just thought process. But
Right.
it does. It makes sense that, like, all right, we're not seeing them because
Well, what-
they do live underground, just like humans. We live underground in
there's-
certain sense, and like take the subways, all these different things.
Sure.
People build
There's a
bunkers
huge-
all the time, so it does make sense. But
And I don't think they just need to live underground, but I'm just saying
right,
that it's certainly possible that that's where they retreat to just for safety purposes. I mean, if we're talking about early hominids and archaic human type creatures, what's the like really generic term for them? Cavemen, right?
Yeah.
So I think that there's plenty of space. First of all, we barely. I mean, we've explored what if you want to call it inner Earth, as far as cave systems, probably less than we've explored the oceans, and we all have heard that little cliche statement that we know more about space than we do about our own ocean. So cave systems are extremely prevalent. You've got potentially geothermic heat down there. A lot of these creatures are described as being nocturnal, possibly having glowing eyes, possibly having large dark eyes. All these things would be adaptations that would be consistent with a creature that lives in caves and has adapted to living in caves. And then what do they eat? Okay, well, I just read an article the other day. Well, that wasn't the other day. It was a couple months ago before winter started, but it was about the Appalachian Mountains near where I live. And it was talking about how bears still have plenty of food, just based on like eating nuts, pine cones, random things like that. But another interesting map overlay is to look at white deer populations and Bigfoot sightings. There's a lot of white-tailed deer. We got lots of fish. We've got, any good survivalist will tell you that there's plenty to eat out in the wilderness of the United States. So I think creatures, once again, they're going to adapt to eat what's available.
Yeah, true.
On the West Coast, there's lots of Native American stories of them, and witness reports as well of them going out and getting kelp and seaweed, which we know is really good for you. There's obviously lots of reports out there of them getting salmon, which we know is really good for brain health and all that kind of stuff. But there's lots of reports all over the country of them being able to, mentioned Sewell Kalu earlier, the Cherokee story of these ancient giants from the West. Now the West may have been Tennessee, but from where they were in sort of the Carolinas and Georgia. But they called them the lords of the hunt, or the lords of the game, masters of the hunt, this kind of thing, because these guys were or are the ultimate hunters. And if you listen to hunter reports today, they'll talk about seeing these things come out of nowhere basically and slap a large deer, or just slap a large hog or something like that, and it just stuns the animal. They basically pick it up, snap its neck, throw it over their back, and walk away. I think if you're that good at what you do, then it's not as hard to survive. Humans, we're much more frail. We're much more dependent
very
on
delicate.
each other, and so I think that and we're not as these things are still hair covered. So they, in a lot of cases, so they blend in with their environment just like any other animal. They're going to adapt to blend into where they're living. So they're basically just like we have to wear a ghillie suit when we go hunting. They already have theirs, and a lot of people say they think it's a huge hunter in a ghillie suit at first because they're so well camouflaged. So I think that and again, I'm just making an inference. I haven't seen one. I hope to one day, and then I'll know that it's real. I don't know at this point, but I think that there's plenty of food out there. I think that there's plenty of space, and I think that they're actually a lot closer to us, and they come in a lot closer to us.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Than we realize.
Yeah,
Dude, that'd
there's
be
a lot
sweet.
of reports.
I'm actually
of
going up
them.
to kind of like one of the sightings you posted, and I guess that got a lot of, I guess you would say, flack, and is in the New York one, the Beacon Bigfoot,
Right.
and actually that's really close, like Fishkill Creek in New York, and actually I'm going up there in about 3 weeks, like really close to that. My buddy has a hunting cabin up there, and we're actually going to go up there, and I'll post because he's going to bring the Italian rifle, the Carcano, that supposedly Lee Harvey Oswald used to kill JFK. So we'll be shooting that. Maybe I'll share it on our Instagram page. But
Interesting. Yeah, that'd be cool.
But yeah, like
Yeah, I mean, Harriman State Park is up there. Or not actually where I lived in like sort of the Westchester area when I was living up there a few years ago, and I just posted some tracks from Harriman State Park, which is like right there.
yeah,
So there's lots of stuff going on, and even like I said, I think before we started, there's lots of evidence leaning towards those beacon videos to have been created by an artist named Ron English.
yeah,
I posted those more as a catalyst for conversation about what we've been talking about today as far as our perception of what these creatures look like. But that also doesn't, I mean, there's a rich history in that area.
right. It doesn't discount
Or
Bigfoot.
not.
But see, like these types of videos, they kind of annoy me because, like you said, and I agree. Like if there is a creature out there that is Bigfoot and it's very intelligent, the way that this moved and the way that this, like kind of interacted with its environment, it doesn't seem as intelligent as I would, think like a Bigfoot is. But then again, that's my own preconceived notions of saying like, all right, it's really good at, staying hidden, not being detected, but this thing was really more acting like, like a chimp and like a crazy chimp just to do like its thing. Granted, if it can catch a fish, that's like crazy, because I don't think I could do that with my bare hand. But at the same time, like when you look at the video and definitely look at it, it's the Beacon Bigfoot Part 1 and 2 on Squatch Me Now. You can find it on their Instagram page and also on their blog, but your blog, sorry. But it's kind of more fuel, I think, which it's great. It's a great story. It's cool. It's cool to think about. But then again, it goes back to that thing where you say, oh man, like this is just more fuel for the people that are on the hoaxers, the conspiracy side, just to say like, all right, this is all just bullshit. There's just too many people out there that kind of like do this stuff. And it does hurt like the real research. And if it is a real thing, you kind of have, and I think we have more evidence. I don't know. This is just my feeling on it. We just have more evidence of people like doing some fuckery out there than real shit. But I mean, we even have one of our, comments from YouTube, Connie. She says she's watching from the UK and they have their own, Bigfoot / wild man, as they call it. So like that goes back to your point. There's cultures all around the world that have their different adaptation of what Bigfoot is to them or what it looks like or their sightings, like the Yeti, I mean, just like in the Asian cultures themselves, they have all these different, names, terms, and descriptions of it. Like they're not just all like brown. Some have the reddish hair. Some have like white hair. So like there's all these different descriptions, which I 100% agree with you. Like you can't discount them all. But then like the more stuff I see like this, I'm like, shit, it's like, I don't know what to believe sometimes. I'm always on like the fence. I'm like going back and forth. I'm like, oh shit, man, that like the British Columbia video got me, or like the Russia video got me. Because if that's like faked, it's like, oh shit, they did a really great job. But then you see like videos like this where it's like, all right, they're just acting more like a monkey to me, and just like jumping around and like making noises like they think they would. So,
but there could be some that do that,
Right,
and,
exactly.
That's the rub. And I think it actually, in my opinion, I think more than the hoaxes, because I post very, very little stuff that I think could possibly be a hoax, or I know is, because I scrub through so much stuff that, in my opinion, obviously is. But I think what hurts us, the serious look at this more than anything, is not even so much the hoaxes as it is just, like I said before, the mentality that it's only one thing or another, and people's egos getting in the way, and researchers or experts egos getting in the way, and infighting and arguing in the community, whereas we really just need to be saying, this is a bigger idea, none of us are experts, and let's just try to keep an open mind about all the evidence until it's proven otherwise. And when people, you're always going to have the people that immediately just drop fake. So anybody that follows my pages knows that I'm going to say right off the bat, tell me why.
Sure.
And, I've seen it a bunch of times on your Instagram page where,
And 1%, 1% of the time I'll get a response. And when I get that one response, it's too small. Its arms aren't the right length. Its hair isn't the right color. Its head's not the right shape, or whatever the case may be. That's just not enough. You can't just like you can't subjectively prove it, you can't subjectively debunk it. So, and this is once again my subjective opinion, but I think that we just need to keep an open mind about the evidence, and even with the faked evidence, we need to take a closer look at that evidence and figure out how they're faking it, so we can differentiate between the faked evidence and the real evidence. And I don't think you're going to be finding many people faking stuff like that Calgary Bigfoot or the Russian leaping honesty. I'm actually working on a documentary right now, and one of the aspects of this documentary is us trying to recreate some of these better videos that I really like. Is it possible to create something that looks that good? And what's it going to take? And going through that process, I have a professional suit maker right now producing a couple suits for me, and we're going to try to do it. We're not going to hoax anybody. We're not going to put out hoax videos. We'll just begin a documentary straightforward. We'll see the process. You'll see the cost. You'll see, everything involved. And,
I do like that.
We'll see if we can actually do it. I don't know that we'll be able to. And unfortunately, with the way these things go, I don't know that I'll be able to get the licensing to actually show the original videos, but we can tell people to go watch those. And compare from that point, but it's hard. It's harder than people think to pull off a lot of these.
Yeah. Well, besides
the smaller, go ahead.
No. Besides, like you, because I know, like talking to you before and just following your stuff. I mean, you're very thorough, and you do, like, you keep an open mind, but at the same, like, you're very honest with some of these things. So if you see like a hoax, you'll certainly say it, even if you post a video, and then like most people would probably just see like the one video and then don't read anything afterwards, and then still come after you,
Right.
even though after you explained everything you could. But would you say is there somebody else that you follow or that you would recommend following at the same time that like really puts enough research and time and effort into some of these cases and some of the stuff that comes across your desk?
Well, I mean, Thinker Thunker, his YouTube page, I really respect his work. He's another video professional that's sort of trying to break down these videos, and I don't even agree with him all the time, because he's still debunking subjectively based on, or trying to say it's real, based on certain biometrics that are considered to be what Bigfoot is, and I just don't necessarily agree with that.
Right.
And all points that it's got to be, his arms have to be this long, his legs have to be this long, whatever. But he is looking at things trying to say, okay, it's this tall. Like, he did a video, you brought up the Minnesota Christmas video, and he did a great video on that, just sort of taking the size of, the average size of the trees around the creature. Like, he went straight to like Wikipedia or something and looked up like what's the smallest and the largest, radius or circumference of these trees.
Yeah.
And then took them, stacked them up beside the creature, and sort of made a general estimate about how tall it could be. So he's looking at good stuff. Again, I don't think anybody's an expert on this. I don't claim to be an expert on this. And like I said, if we got a body tomorrow, I don't think the people studying that body would be experts on the greater phenomenon. But, unfortunately, I think a lot of people out there are just trying to build YouTube pages. And
oh yeah, we're trying to build one too, so I get it.
But I don't need. But you guys are doing it. These guys are doing it based on a lot of pareidolia. There's a lot of pareidolia out there. There's a lot of people saying, "Don't you see that Bigfoot in the bushes?" And while he may be there, because we weren't there for the experience, the image they're showing us.
Right. Seeing is believing.
And like I said about lenses, we're not seeing as much as people are seeing with their own eyes in most cases. I just can't look at a bunch of bushes and say, yeah, it's definitively a Bigfoot face in there, because you zoomed in really far, it got really pixelated, and kind of maybe sort of looks like a face. So there's a lot of people trying to, and that's what I was getting to. There's a lot of people trying to build YouTube pages in that way. Obviously, I have a YouTube page too. I'm not, so there's few people, there's few and far between, I think, that are really trying to and the ones that are trying to take a serious look at it are taking too narrow a view of the overall subject.
I think you might be right.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think you might be right. I mean, there's like this subject I think is never ending, and it's one of those things where
Mhm.
you can kind of keep talking about it and going almost around in circles sometimes, depending on who you talk to and how much that like they looked into certain things, and we
Right.
try to definitely look and I mean, when we do like a podcast, we spend like 2, 3 weeks, even months sometimes before we even say like, all right, we're going to do a show and look into it, every possibility. And then after the show, we always come back and be like, shit, we missed this, or, we should have touched on this, or we totally forgot about this case. So like, there's always tons of research to be had. And there's plenty more people that are in the woods a lot longer than I am, and
Mhm.
have seen a lot more stuff than I have. Cause I never experienced anything like this. I mean,
Right.
I've seen a bear up close once. Other than that, nothing. And at that time I saw a bear up close, I was mountain biking. So other than that, like I have never seen like a bear up close. So like if I'm,
Right.
if you're just taking my one account, saying like, oh, well, bears don't really exist because I never seen it besides pictures or zoos or anything else. It's like I only saw it once in
Right.
my lifetime, so they probably don't exist. I mean, I understand where you're saying, the narrow minded. So I agree. You
And I
have
just being narrow-minded as far as what they're looking for. You have this big argument in the community right now: is it a human or is it a ape? I don't think it's one or the other.
right.
You have this big argument right now. A lot of genetic evidence and stuff is being disregarded. Oh, this is just human DNA or whatever, and we're looking for ape DNA. Well, the fact of the matter is that we're probably looking at something that's so close to human that you need to have been able to already identify very specific genetic markers that we have no, precedent for.
Yeah.
Because you don't have enough sample size. Yep.
Yeah.
DNA. And then there's just, and then in some cases, it's a spectrum, I think. I think on one level of the spectrum, we're dealing with something that's a lot more ape-like. On another level of the spectrum, we're dealing with things that are a lot more human-like. And there's a lot of different variations in between, all over the world. So,
True.
it's that's the problem is really arguing over whether it's this or whether it's that, or people that are experts out there saying it's definitely an ape.
Oh yeah. No
Definitely
one's an
just,
expert.
so it's I don't think it's just an ape or just a human or just whatever. I think it's a lot of things that we don't know yet. There's a lot of, here in the Appalachians, there's even stories about feral humans living in caves in the mountains around here. More of like, I don't know if you've seen that movie, The Descent. But, even if you took a human, some modern human from 300 years ago, and threw a population of them in caves, and they lived in caves for the last 300 years, they're going to have certain adaptations where they've become something a little bit different than what you and I are.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think we're dealing with a much broader topic here than just whether it's an ape or a human, and those kinds of arguments, or those kinds of ego-driven experts that just want to argue that it's an ape because I say it is. They're hurting us more than any hoax video ever will.
Yeah. True. I
so-
mean, this subject, there's a lot to talk about, and I appreciate you coming on, and just giving
thanks
some
for
of
having
your
me.
insight. And yeah, we'll have to keep up, and definitely anybody listening, keep up with Squatch Me Now if you're not following on Instagram, or check out their websites. Or I keep saying their website, your website, Trey's.
Thanks, yeah.
SquatchMeNow.net.
I have some other researchers that help me and contribute, so
I'm just so
you can
used
say
to
that.
saying that, like with me and Greg, because it's like so it's like it rolls off
Yeah,
the tongue
yeah.
a little easier for me sometimes. But yeah, I
Yeah.
really appreciate you coming on and just giving us some
Yeah,
insight
absolutely.
into certain stories and just your theories, because that's what we're all about. We're just trying to figure out and just talk to enough people that could say to us like, all right, this is our experience, this is our thought process, and like you opened up the door in my mind a little bit just from the fact that you said, like, because it is, I think I pigeonhole like what's on the lunchbox that I have, Bigfoot. That's what it looks like to me. But and when you bring a different perspective on it, it definitely opens up some different avenues that I can go in, and I could say, all right, this is some type of research that I should jump into or look into it at a different, perspective. So I appreciate
Right.
that.
Cool. That's my goal. So I'm glad I was successful. Great talking to you guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Trey. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Bye.
All right, talk to you later.
Dude, like, Bigfoot definitely fascinates me. And it's one of those things where I want to keep talking about it. And it's kind of tough because maybe like another show, we could have somebody that's totally against Bigfoot and then just has
Sure.
like a totally different perspective on it, because I think he does bring a lot of interesting points, you know, just say it's like, all right, it's not one thing. And if you look at a lot of historical records from around the world, you know, like you talked about Native Americans, or, you know, even certain, you know, over in ancient Europe and things like that, where they talk about, you know, different hominids and the hairy men and, you know, like the wild man and, you know, Yeti, all these different things that we don't think of because we're here in the States, but it's been around the world before, like I said, mass communications. So I do think there is something to it, whether it, you know, died off a long time ago, like man, I can't say it, but, you know, like it died off at one period of time.
Gigantokithesis?
What?
That you were trying to say that?
Yeah, you didn't even say it correctly.
I know that.
But yeah, I'm trying to think, you know, like it doesn't roll off the tongue easily. But I mean, that's kind of like what I think about. But again, it's up for debate. And I think you're just going to have to watch a lot of different, you know, like videos and kind of do their, like we always say, like do your own research, you know, like, and whatever your conclusion makes. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's really what it comes down to. And I think he's a really interesting guy, and I love following, you know, him on social media. Sorry, I kept saying that, even though he does have researchers. But, you know, following him, Squatch Me Now, and I think it's great.
Squatch Me Now. Patreon's going to get a bonus.
Yeah, so if you're listening, you like this interview, and you like to, you know, Trey's information and, you know, his own perspective and just what he shared, because he has tons. I mean, if you're into Bigfoot, definitely follow and tag along to Trey, because he has a lot of information. But I'm going to play. This is from Michael Picarella Studios.
Big picks.
The Picky Picks. Yeah, this is from him, the Jack-O-Lantern Press guys. So if you haven't checked them out too, definitely take a listen to them, because every Monday they do Monster Mondays, which I think are great. I love listening to them in my car. But this, he made this for us, man. So
Biggie picks.
So I think this is cool. This is going to be our exit. We'll let it play a little bit more. So we'll wrap this up. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. And until next time, I think next podcast we're going to be doing is on Skinwalker Ranch.
Yes, sir.
You hear Bigfoot right there. Yeah, this is a great thing. So I'll let this play out. Thank you for tuning in. And like, you know what we always like to say, until next time, that's not what we want to say. Until next time,
Stay spooky.